Hello and welcome to WalkActive Mind Talk, a series of lively chats and conversation with myself, Joanna Hall, the creator and founder of WalkActive, and clinical psychologist Dr Nikki Tweedie. And it is our joy to have these chats to really enhance your physical and your mental well-being. And today we're talking all about the importance of self-talk. So a big warm welcome. Nikki, how are you doing?
Oh, really good and lovely to connect with you again, and
I know.
lovely to think about these things and to be offering people a place to come to just take on board maybe one or two new ideas.
And I say we had some really lovely feedback from our first chat. So thank you so much for that. We really enjoyed that. And we've been discussing about what different topics we might like to discuss over the coming weeks. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of self-talk, that inner conversation that we can have with ourselves, which can be really quite negative and critical and undermining of all these amazing abilities that we have. So do you want to talk about and kick off maybe from your perspective, from a professional, because when we were chatting you had some really interesting things to say about it, and we feel much better straight away.
Oh, well, I think it's so important to understand, where self-talk originates from, and actually it's a survival strategy. We need to be able to make sense of what's going on around us even before we have language. Actually, we're in some way trying to respond to our feelings even when we're very little, and that when you're taking care of young people who are very vulnerable, that even when they don't have language, they're trying to make sense of their situation, whether they're hungry or thirsty or hot or cold, or they need love and care. And our self-talk is a way of helping us work out what's going on, and a kind of a cerebral or cognitive reading of how we are, much like our body's doing, in terms of how hydrated we are, and whether we're warm enough or cold enough, that it's really a way for us to regulate what we need. And I think when we understand that, and when we understand that it's not true necessarily, it's not a truth, our thought is not necessarily to be taken as fact, that these thoughts, these ways that we talk to ourselves, they're indications that we need to interact with what's going on, and we need to find a way forward. And that doesn't necessarily need to be a way of worrying or a way of feeling overwhelmed. It can be something that we react to and respond to without necessarily feeling threatened. And that, I think, is essential for us all to understand and to remind ourselves. And we might say it to other people, oh, of course you're not, you're not this or you're not that, or it's not that bad. But maybe we need to apply those things a bit more to ourselves when we're talking to ourselves.
That is what's so hard, isn't it? Because you can say it a lot to other people and really mean it with masses of empathy, but actually to address that with ourselves with clarity and authenticity and love and kindness, I know that can be really hard. Why is it, do you think, that it's so hard to actually direct that conversation back to ourselves? When we can give it out maybe quite easily, but actually we can't accept it for ourselves.
Well, I think when we're listening to somebody else, we're holding in mind our relationship with them. So we're not taking that in as fact about ourselves. And it's so much easier when, especially if it's someone you care about or really well, that you can hold a sense of perspective about who they are and what's happening for them. When we're talking to ourselves, and our chemistry, our neurons are firing, and maybe we're producing quite a number of hormones, our body's feeling quite active, it's so much harder to reflect or to think about the wider perspective, and we tend to take things as fact. So if we start worrying about, I was late, or I wasn't kind, or my business isn't doing well enough, or people aren't accepting me at work, or I'm not fit enough, or I haven't been active enough, or my diet isn't good enough, whatever it is, I haven't given up smoking yet. Our experience is that we're immediately under threat, and all those things are actually a criticism. They're those anxious thoughts, they're very rarely a kind of positive, grateful, welcoming, guiding type of interaction, unless we learn to respond to them in that way. So typically our internal thoughts are, you haven't done this, you should have done that, why didn't you do that, you've forgotten that, that isn't enough. And
I haven't been to the gym, I haven't worked out enough. I
haven't taught my children enough, I haven't been a kind enough wife or a kind enough husband, I'm not attentive enough to my friends, I'm not sociable enough. All of those things, that if we respond to those things as fact, and when you're very activated with all these thoughts, you're responding from a place of threat, and we can't learn when we're threatened. That when you're trying to teach somebody or you're trying to encourage somebody else to do something, actually if you become quite critical and threatening, they just withdraw, or you can visibly see them kind of physically suppressed by that experience. We can't learn. And so of course with our worries, what we want to do is we want to be creative, we want to be thoughtful, we want to kind of think laterally, we want to engage a 360 perspective to find a solution. The more critical and more threatening you are of yourself, the greater the capacity for you to just push all of that away. So we need to find ways of engaging with our own experience that encourages us out of that place of threat and encourages us to kind of breathe and to take in perspective and to allow ourselves a period of time to find a solution. There's nothing that's immediate that's going to work.
And I think it comes back to the idea of learning and growing from it rather than actually sinking into that situation. I think people can often feel, and myself included, that I'm the only person who's worrying. Everyone else is kind of like, okay, I've got life sorted. And then you feel that you are by yourself. And then that kind of exacerbates that ability not to talk about your own personal worry and sit in it and maybe dwell in it. And someone gave me a good piece of advice, that it's almost like you've got your worry here on your shoulder, and you might put it on your shoulder, and then you can actually, whatever that worry is saying to you, or whether your negative talk is to yourself, it's like you can just turn to them and try to squash it with humor. It's like, are you having a laugh? Are you really having a laugh? Are you absolutely crackers? And when they said that to me, I actually found that really powerful, that you actually put your worry here and then you talk to it, and then you encourage that dialogue, and it almost contains it. And I know for myself that has actually been quite a useful perspective on it. But
humor is fantastic.
Yeah.
Watch yourself doing whatever it is, and add in, in your mind, add in the Benny Hill theme tune, if that helps. Or, have everybody speaking as if they've just, breathed in a helium balloon, or they're talking like Tweety Pie. Absolutely. And I think, a lot of us are very visual creatures. And if not, a lot of people really respond to auditory stuff. So hear somebody who's really important to you saying to your critical self, that's enough. That's not okay. We're not doing that. That's not very kind. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Whatever it is that's going to help you bring in other people or other voices. Use your imagination. Our imagination is the most beautiful, astonishing experience that we can truly control and have in every moment that we need. And it can be an absolute ally. Imagine yourself in a beautiful place, or imagine yourself having achieved what it is that is currently a kind of a barrier or a limitation for you. So see yourself being really active, see yourself being really flexible, see yourself having lots of time, see yourself feeling calm and relaxed and connected to other people, see yourself doing these things that you need to. Use your imagination. Don't be afraid that in some way that's fake, or it's absolutely not. It's encouraging your mind to a forward point, a point in the future where you want to get to, and have that. Absolutely talk to yourself, have it on your shoulder. Maybe you want to have a couple of other people there, people who would really fight your corner and absolutely have your back and be saying, this is not acceptable, this is not the way we discuss things, this is not negotiating, this is not going anywhere.
Just
what are we going to do?
Pipe down the cheap seats.
Absolutely, enough of that one. And it's something we do in therapy. In formal therapy, we really encourage people to take a different voice, take a different tone. If you need to do it in front of the mirror, have your little bit of, have your moment. Lots of, elite, speakers, highly respected professionals will take themselves to a place and they'll have a conversation with themselves to get into the right kind of state, because it's really important. It's not, people joke about talking to yourself. It is vital that as you grow as a human being, that is something you pay attention to. It's really important. You're not there to be just, you know, at the mercy of an unkind internal voice. It needs a coach.
It needs a yeah, exactly. But we don't necessarily think about that in that sense, do we? We think about maybe getting help in this direction for diet or exercise or this or that, but actually internally, and to coach away that negative and to encourage and nurture that positivity is quite difficult. Because it's at 3 o'clock in the morning, or you know, at night, when you wake up in the dead of night and you've just got that deep kind of fret. I call it a fret sometimes, you know, you just fret about it. My mum used to use that word, and I quite like that word, because sometimes it's just kind of little kind of gnawing away, and that can just be very debilitating to question your confidence in so many ways. And we have so much potential and abundance in our lives that we let this negative self-talk just squash it down. And why is it that we have that 3 o'clock in that morning, or why is it certain times in the day when we just feel that we're being more vulnerable to it? Is there like a rhythm? Is there like a body clock that we
Absolutely.
have? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think understanding those things can really help take the heat out of things. Maybe you know, taking it from a threat to a fret to a free sense of being able to creatively respond is really important, to think about being on a bit of a journey with it and to understand your physiology. So yeah, absolutely, at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, what your body is doing is it's transitioning from deep sleep into lighter phases of sleep and REM sleep, which is exactly what we need in order to solve a lot of our problems. REM sleep is where your creativity originates, where your mind, where you have your kind of active dreaming, where your mind's blending and weaving, all these things that don't make sense in your dream, but your mind needs to do it in order to be able to find these solutions that you're searching for. And if what happens as you kind of emerge into this lighter phase of sleep, where we naturally wake, you know, many times, your worries begin to seep in because your body's producing some hormones to get you into that kind of lighter phase of sleep, and you're associating that with worry, and you wake up and then you start to think about it and you feel quite threatened. That completely interferes with your sleep rhythm. You may even end up awake for an hour or 2 hours worrying about it. And I think if you respond to that by thinking, gosh, I'm so worried, I'm awake, rather than thinking, this is completely natural, I don't need to worry about this now. My mind was just bringing me into a state of alertness in order to get into a different phase of sleep. I'm going to go back to sleep because that's part of what's going to be a solution for me. And then I'm going to wake up, you know, feeling ready for the day and able to apply some of those things. Or understanding that around your menstrual cycle, or as you might be transitioning, you know, through menopause, that you are going to be experiencing a different emotional state on a regular basis. I am. And it's really important to know that that's happening, and not to feel like you're becoming more anxious, or you're becoming deranged, or you're unable to cope. You know, for men, we know that actually there are really different physiological changes that occur through their life cycle. And I don't think they're well documented or well understood, but it's really important to think, this is a natural experience that I'm having, that thousands and millions of other people are having. And I can respond to it by understanding what's going, and not feeling overwhelmed, not feeling like this is yet another thing that I can't do, or yet another aspect of my being that's sort of slightly dysfunctional, or that I have to be ashamed of, or, you know, God, I'm going to pitch up to work. I was awake in the night too last night, and I was just really straightforward about it. And many other people in my first meeting this morning were like, oh God, me too, I didn't sleep so well. So, you know, being straightforward and open about these things, and understanding the way that our neurobiology works, our neurochemistry works, is so important to toggle down on that sense of threat and be able to take forward something that's going to work with your physiology better.
And that sense of threat is actually a really interesting word, because sometimes it can become so bad you almost feel like you wake up in the morning, you feel like you've gone 10 rounds with someone who's really, you know, beating you up neurologically, physically, and it's like, oh my God, what am I doing? And you know, having that sense of humor, or being able to just compartmentalize it, I think is really important. But talking about things about you know, going through different phases of your life, I think what's interesting about the menopause is that the anxiety level just just drip feeds so subtly that it actually becomes unnoticed, so it then becomes the norm. And I think that's for many women, that's what can actually be quite disconcerting, because it almost legitimizes the worry and you feel like you are the only person. And that's about what you're saying is, it's not, this is completely normal, you know. And it's okay
I think
to do it. By talking about it, that's what's so powerful about these kind of dialogues.
Absolutely. And you know, you and I have been talking about the importance of walking, and one of the reasons that I'm so interested to learn about the work that you do, and you know, to think about the ways that I can encourage the people that I work with to think a little bit more about activity, is that, you know, at every level, going for a walk or taking more exercise is good for you. So, you know, we are conceptual, kind of abstract beings. We love the idea of a journey. We dream about journeys. We watch films about journeys. We plan our holidays and their journeys. You know, going for a walk or going for a swim or going for a row or going for a run, it's a journey. And, you know, we can take our worries with us on that journey. We can, you know, very deliberately think, I'm going to think about what's worrying me, because you might have very significant worry. There might be worries for you around health or for the people that you love. There might be worries about finance or about intimacy, or there might be worries about, you know, your relationship with your children. We all have, you know, legitimate concerns, and we need to worry about them, and we need to think about them and come up with solutions in an orderly fashion. And we need to give that worry its own time. And there are some fantastic apps that, you know, you can use to schedule your worry time. It's not a trick. It's a really sensible thing to do. And I would say, take your worry with you when you are being active, because you're on a journey. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. And you're using that kind of bipedal, bilateral stimulation, that rocking motion, particularly when you're rowing or you're walking or you're running, even when you're swimming. It's very calming, and it will enable you to regulate that, you know, I'm even doing it now. We often do it when we're like weighing things up. What shall I do? You know, people will drum on, you know, on the table, or, you know, that there are lots of ways in which we naturally use this, because it settles us. It helps us regulate our feelings. It also helps us process, biologically, chemically process all those stress hormones that we've produced, because it enables your body to metabolize them. So in every way, it's absolutely the best thing to do with your worry. And it may be that during that time that you're walking, you think, do you know what, I really want to focus in prayer on this. I want to focus in mindfulness, or I need to reach out to somebody. I need to speak to my best mate, even though I'm feeling like maybe really worried, or this is very private, or I might need to talk to a professional person. I might need to go back to somebody who's, you know, like Joe. I might need to, you know, to talk a bit more about the physiology of walking. I might want to not necessarily focus on telling her my problem, but I might want to get better at using the activity. You know, that there are all kinds of ways in which we might not be able to solve the problem immediately. And many of our biggest problems, they can't be solved immediately, but we need to have a sense of journeying with them and having a sense of finding some emotional state where we feel a bit more able. And sometimes that's through sharing, and sometimes that's through just focusing on, you know, getting better at something and feeling a bit better about ourselves.
There's a really lovely quote from Ralph Paffenberger, who's a famous epidemiologist, and he says everybody should take their dog for a walk every day, even if they don't have one. And it's that whole thing, you know, it's creating a rhythm, which is what we touched about on a previous talk, to our lives. But I love this idea of actually take your worry for a walk active. You know, legitimize it. Okay, I'm taking you with me. We're going to sort this out. We're going to have a chat about it. I'm going to mull. I'm going to cogitate it over. And I think that can be a really, really powerful thing. And when you have good movement quality, it allows you to create a flow to your movement pattern with, you know, with WalkActive, scientifically proven to that. And that's what's so interesting about, you know, I love your work, because I just think it works so well in terms of take the two together, use what works for your body physiologically, neurologically, you know, biomechanically, to actually build your mental well-being and to enhance your physical well-being. And you know, challenge the way that we think about exercise. So it's not just necessarily about how pert our bottoms are, or maybe those inches around the waistline. You know, those can all be really, really powerful motivators, encouragers, stimuli, but equally we need to think about all these amazing things that good movement pattern, a regular movement pattern and consistent movement pattern offers us on all these different levels. And
absolutely, and you wouldn't assume that you could necessarily learn a language in one lesson, or learn to drive in one lesson, or you have a build around to quote for a piece of work. That's going to take time. All of it takes time. But if the quality of the time is enhanced, if we resource ourselves by thinking, I might need to be with this worry for some time. I might not resolve this issue around intimacy or health very quickly. I'm not going to be a gym bunny. I'm not going to be going from not taking any exercise to doing 3 45-minute HIIT exercises every week. I'm going to begin in a way that's possible for me and that enhances my whole well-being. I'm going to do something that enables me to manage a bit better throughout my day, rather than exercise just being this kind of fast food thing that if you don't do it in a kind of
it needs to be
better
a
not do it
pleasure.
at all.
It needs to be,
and it needs to enhance your well-being.
It needs to be achievable. It needs to be sustainable, and it needs to be consistent. And it's not something that we're just going to be doing tomorrow or next week or next month. It's actually, what do I feel really good about that I can achieve well and fit in with my lifestyle today, tomorrow, next month, next year, next decade, within my next sort of phase of my life, of maybe being a sibling, a parent, a grandparent, a great grandparent. It's having that positivity, and I think looking at a toolbox of ways that we can move our body and feel that we have ways that will enhance our well-being. But I really love this idea, and we're going to give people a little challenge, aren't we, at the end of this, of take your worry for a walk active. But I also like the idea of, if you're really angry about something or worried, you can actually sort of try to wrap it up, maybe, and put it on a piece of paper or something, and you actually, every time you're taking a step, you're actually squashing it into the ground, so you're minimizing it. So this sort of the size of this worry or the size of this emotion can actually get squashed, and you can actually have that physical imprint. So there's an emotional, there's a physical connection with actually trying to get it out of your body as well, so it doesn't take up so much space. And I've heard people have that, has been quite an interesting and successful thought pattern, just to stop this worry taking on too much of an ogre and too much negative time space within your body, to actually step it out and step on it.
And I think going for a walk is a really good opportunity to think, what do I need to do to my worry? Do I need to squash it? Do I need to say, that is enough? You're not speaking kindly enough. You're not offering solutions. This is a problem in my life, and I am actually addressing this, and I need to do X, Y, and Z. Or do you need to respond to that by growing tall? Is that critical voice actually a very relevant, very important thing that you need to listen to? Is it saying, this is not safe? This is not okay. You shouldn't be treated like this. Are you going to take some action? Is there something you're going to do to look after yourself? And actually, you need to grow tall and listen to that voice, because there's something that's been gnawing away at you that's about being really brave and stepping out and making a change. And it might be about a change in role. Sometimes for some people, thinking about, for example, retiring, it's a kind of a conversation. They think, I just don't want to think about that. I was just, not today or not. And actually, no, go and have a look at your finances. Have a think about what you need to do. What can you afford? What is the quality of your life like? Do you need to make a change? Is the the current role you're in, or the current relationship you're in, is that okay? Or do you need to grow tall and be brave and face a difficult conversation? And could you role play that on a walk? Could you think, what do I need to do in relationship to this? Because some of these worries that we don't pay attention to are actually asking us to be incredibly brave and do something different, stand up for what's right, maybe join in with a conversation or learn a bit more, like the some of the movements that we've seen recently about, being more respectful and more thoughtful about everybody's experience. So I think a walk is a good moment to think, what do I need to do with this worry?
Take your worry for a walk active. I'm loving that. I'm loving that. And what about this whole idea of writing down things? I mean, that can be really powerful as well, isn't it? Do you think, would you advise people to do that? If there's a, and what about this whole idea of maybe writing down this consistent thing that your negative self-talk is saying to yourself? How can you shift it from a negative self-talk to an actual positive self-talk to actually enhance and move you along in a positive way, in a forward direction?
The flow of our thoughts is just, you couldn't write as quickly as you can think, and you can't speak as quickly as you can think either. And what tends to happen is if we leave them just as thoughts in our mind, we end up in this kind of maelstrom where, you know, things are happening too quickly. If we were in a conversation with a group of people and it was happening that quickly, we wouldn't be able to take in what was happening. We may even say, you know, in a work environment, I feel quite bullied, or you know, this is inappropriate. But we allow it to go on inside our heads in a way that we just sort of take for granted. Or that's, you know, that's just how my brain operates. And if you're quite an active person, or you're somebody who can quickly combine thoughts, you know, we know that it's even more difficult to slow things down. So some of us, myself included, I'm a very quite tangential, think I'm a little bit like a squirrel sometimes, which is a really, really good thing. But when I'm worrying, you know, I can think back to hundreds of examples of things I haven't done well enough at 3 o'clock in the morning, back to 1993.
Oh yeah, we might as well just ram them all together, baby. Make them big.
We're on a roll now.
I took myself out for a walk this morning. Yeah. It is. Yeah, totally.
It can be overwhelming. So one of the important things to know about writing it down is you're deliberately slowing it down. And you are choosing you know, as you think about the nouns and adjectives, you are thinking about how you describe it, and you're giving it a shape. So in narrative therapy, that's one of the techniques that they use. They really encourage you to explain and describe in very, you know, clear and creative ways, and it is really, really important. Write those things down. So, you know, there are worry apps, and they encourage you to write down what is your worry, what is the worry about. And it's usually about, am I safe, am I loved, at a basic level. And it's really important that you take that seriously, because when you let that maelstrom go on in your head, it's very disorganized, and it's difficult to respond adequately. Honestly, it really is. And if you write it down and you are thoughtful and careful, and you choose what it is that you're worrying about, you have a much better chance of responding adequately.
And moving it forward.
Yeah, I definitely would encourage people to write it down.
So I think some of the things that come through from this talk for me have, worry is a legitimate action. You know, that's absolutely fine. Completely natural. You know, it's natural. You're not the only person who's actually experiencing worries, and the ability to listen to it. And I think that's probably a skill, to be able to listen to your worry and to be able to identify whether actually it's telling you something that you need to really listen to, or actually it's more of a negative thing where you might apply humour, or
what relationship do you want to take to your worry?
You've
got to work out your position, and you can best do that if you write it down and think about it.
And then I think, so shall we kind of finish this talk by giving people a challenge, Nikki? What do you think?
Let's do absolutely
that. So we've been really interested in this talk and leading up to this conversation, haven't we, about take your worry for a walk active. And we would like to encourage you, if you like this idea, to actually do that, and share your thoughts below. So find a time, so allocate a time when you're actually going to take your worry for a walk active, take it out. And we talked about the length of time, and any time is great.
Yes.
But maybe from my perspective, I think from a physiological perspective, I'd love you to take your worry for a walk active for maybe a minimum of 20 minutes. And the reason I'd like it for 20 minutes is you get into a rhythm. I'd like you to feel that you go through your walk active technique, you get into a flow, you feel there is a smoothness, there's a glide, there's a flow. So that kind of feels nice. There's a nice, soft, nurturing, positive fluidity, that your movement pattern feels good. And again, the movement, the quality of emotion affects your emotions. So allow it to be 20 minutes. And then also, obviously, from a neurological perspective, it gives you time then to actually maybe exploring different ramifications.
Yeah, and metabolize some of those stress hormones. Absolutely. And you know, when I'm coaching rowing, those first 20 minutes, they're always the most uncomfortable, and then you settle it. Your body's like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay, I don't have to worry about whether we should be doing this or not, because we're doing this now.
This is
definitely. And there's emerging research that you know, sea swimming, outdoor swimming, and outdoor sports are proving incredibly beneficial, and I'm part of a research group thinking about that, and I'd love to hear, and you know, or you know, either in the comments below, or if you want to message either of us personally, because what we might think about doing is a bit of research about this experience of very deliberately using, you know, this time of activity to regulate how stressed you feel.
I think it's
really, obviously, it's
really,
kind of an intuitive idea that, you know, I guess most people would say yes, it's going to work. So if you've got any lived experience of that, then let us know.
Yeah, we'd love that. We'd love that. As always, Nikki, I love speaking to you. I learned so much, and I just feel it's I always come away from our conversations feeling like, oh, yum, you know, just a little bit more like, which is really great. So so thank you so very much, and also to our audience, thank you very much. Yes. Please leave us a comment. We love it, don't we, Nikki? So thank you so very much. Leave us a comment below, and obviously please like, share. If any of these thoughts and conversations that we're having have helped you, please do you know, share and encourage others to listen as well. And if you've got any particular topics that you would like us to address, we would again love to hear from you. So leave us a little comment below. We'd love to do that. And until the next time, Nikki, thank you so very much. WalkActive Mind Talk will be back soon, okay?
Yeah, take good care, stay safe.
Yeah, you too. Take care, lovely. Lots of love. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.